What's going on, guys? I'm back with another Hat format replay review for you guys. If you're interested in sending in your Hat format replays, you can go down to the video description and find all the information on how to go about sending those in. Anyways, the match I have for you today, we have Falco, who is going to be on Hat, versus the Bad Apple 45, who is going to be on Fabled Quasar. I know they've been labbing this deck for a while, and I'm hoping that this match is going to be a good example of how this deck plays, because it is very cool, and it's one of those decks that can kind of keep going, and even if your opponent drops Max C against it, a lot of times you can even be decked out. So hopefully we will see a good showing from this, and without further ado, let's get straight into this match. Anyways, it looks like Falco is going to start this one out, which is very important for them, honestly. Opening hands, we see the Transmigration Prophecy, Artifact Ignition, Double Cyclone, Pot of Duality, and Soul Charge. Very interesting to see the Transmigration Prophecy in the main deck, as a lot of people from time to time will side this, and this will actually be a very good card in this matchup. And on the other side, we see the Fabled Ganashia, Soul Charge, the Fabled Chawa, Fabled Grimro, and Fabled Raven. I'll go over these cards before we get started real quick. Ganashia, my bad, says if this card is discarded to the graveyard, special summon it, and if special summon this way, it gains 200 attack, but banish it when it leaves the field. Chawa says during your main phase, you can activate this effect, discard one Fabled monster, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand. Grimro is basically the Rhoda, by if you control a Fabled monster, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and add a Fabled monster from your deck to your hand, except itself. And then Raven says you can discard any number of cards, and if you do, this card gains 1 level and 400 attack for each discarded card until the end of this turn. So just a way to kind of get mass amounts of discards. And then obviously the rest is all cards you guys should know by now. But anyways, let's get right into this. Falco will draw a copy of Firehand here. They're going to go Duality, revealing a copy of Mermail and Call the Haunted and Compulse, and add that copy of Mermail, putting the other two back. And after that, they will normal summon Mermail, add a copy of Bottomless, and set probably a lot of back row here, setting 4 back row over to the Bad Apple 45, who gets a copy of Desynchro. This is just a infamous card in a lot of different decks. I know the Karakuri OTK decks will sometimes play it. It says target 1 synchro monster on the field, return it to the extra deck, and then if all monsters that were used for the synchro summon of that monster are in your graveyard, you can special summon all of them. So it's a way to kind of just recycle and use effects and stuff. Here, Raven is going to be summoned, and using the Grimro to then discard itself to add a Fabled monster. Here, adding a copy of the Fabled Crus. This one says if this card is discarded to the graveyard, target one other level 4 or lower Fabled monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. And after that, let's see what happens. Here they're going to use the Chawa, discarding the Cross and special summoning itself. Here it looks like Cross is going to attempt to activate to summon back the Grimro, but the Transmigration Prophecy is going to be activated to target 2 cards in the graveyards and shuffle them into the deck. So making sure they can't get those extra resources right away, which is very important. And after that, it looks like maybe they were chaining to it. The Ignition is going to pop the Transmigration Prophecy to set a copy of Moral Attack. And then from here, the Raven is going to activate, because before they had just used the Grimro, discarding that copy of Ganashia, special summoning itself. And from here, it looks like, let's see what happens. Bottomless is going to activate on that. So it looks like the Bad Apple will go to battle phase, just trying to run over that copy of Mermail, which will work. And here they have to pass. Here Falco gets a copy of Duality, which they can activate, revealing Ignition, Debunk, and another Duality. So they are main decking the copies of Debunk, which will be very good in this matchup yet again. Normal summoning that copy of Firehand and attacking in. Did they forget about Duality here, or is this only until the end of this turn? It is. Okay, so they forgot to just take off the attack there. So here, this would actually be at 1300, so they actually just run it over. And then anyways, Ignition is set in main phase 2, and over to the Bad Apple, who gets a copy of Level Eater. They're going to normal summon that, and just keep in mind, Chawa is a tuner, so they could go for like a Formula Synchron here, but Air Falco is going to activate this copy of Ignition, popping the Moral Tack, setting a copy of Scythe, and then Moral Tack will summon, and they will use the effect to pop a card, popping that copy of Chawa. Soul Charge is going to be activated, though, and Double Cyclone is going to be chained to that. So the Scythe will get destroyed, and it looks like the Bad Apple is going to be summoning Raven and Chawa. Scythe is summoned and then will trigger, locking the Bad Apple out of the extra deck. So Air Falco's deck was definitely a good matchup for this, given all the little techs and just cards in general that the deck plays. Here, it looks like Air Falco drew that Double Cyclone, and they are going to overlay for a copy of Volcasaurus, destroying that Fabled Raven and doing some damage, going for Gaia Dragon, going to battle phase, and inflicting a lot of damage, attacking over the Level Eater, main phase 2, setting 2 over to the Bad Apple, who draws a Lurie, and they are just going to scoop it up there. You really couldn't play through all that back row and disruption that Air Falco had, but it will be a different story moving on into game number 2, depending on their hand. Opening hands, we see Mermail, Dark Hole, Sanctum, Scythe, and Firehand, and on the other side, we see Cerebral, Monster Reincarnation, Upstart, the Fabled NAWCQ, I might be pronouncing that wrong, and Upstart Goblin. So real quickly, this one says during your main phase, you can discard one Fabled monster, and if you do special summon this card from your hand, when this card is special summoned this way, you can special summon one level 2 or lower Fabled monster from your hand. So pretty solid card there. And Air Falco doesn't have any hand traps or anything, so the Bad Apple will be able to just kind of do their thing in this matchup. So here, let's see what ends up happening. Here they draw for turn, getting another Monster Reincarnation. They will Upstart into a copy of Where Art Thou, basically a Rhoda for a level 1 monster, and then during that phase, take a 2000 damage if you did not normal summon the added monster, or if the card with the same name after activating this effect, or activating this card, I should say. And let's see what they do. Here they're going to activate another copy of Upstart, getting a copy of Fabled Raven. And I'll play this one a little slow, so because in case a lot's going on, and again, I'm not super familiar with these cards. Like, I played them back in the day, but it's been quite a while since I looked into it. So here they're activating the copy of NAWCQ, which is you can discard a Fabled monster, and if you do special summon, so here they're attempting to discard and special, discarding Cerebral, and then from here Cerebral will be able to special summon itself, and NAWCQ is also going to summon a copy of Raven from hand. After that, setting 2, using the Raven to discard the copy of Monster Reincarnation, and they're doing that so they can then Synchro Summon, which one's the tuner? Fabled Raven is the tuner, going for 4, probably for a copy of Fabled Ragin, and they are going for Ragin, which can trigger, which you draw until you have 2 cards on Special Summon. You're getting a copy of Chawa and 1-for-1. So very strong here. They are going to normal summon the Chawa because they have not normal summoned. All these summons were just off of this NAWCQ. And then the Where Art Thou is going to activate to get a copy of Level Eater. So now they can 1-for-1 with the Level Eater, which they are going to do, going for a copy of Chawa. From here, they are going to Level Eat the Ragin. And from here, Synchro Summon for a 5, going for a copy of Hyper Librarian, and then Synchro Summoning with the Chawa and the Level Eater for a copy of Formula Synchron to then draw a card, and Librarian will also draw a card. Here they draw a copy of Ganashia and a Soul Charge, so very, very strong. Using the Level Eater on the Librarian, Synchro Summoning for a 3, going for a Miss Valley Clauseless, and drawing a card off of the Librarian, getting a Monster Reincarnation. From here, Monster Reincarnation, discarding the Ganashia to add back the copy of Chawa. And then Ganashia will trigger here. Just double checking that it's an if effect and it's mandatory, so they are going to summon here. From here, they're going to set 1 and go for a Synchro Summon. Then the copy of Ganashia gets banished because it left the field, and then obviously the Cerebral is your level 2 tuner, going for another copy of Ragin, and here they'll only draw 1 because they do have 1 card in hand, and they get the NAWCQ, but the Librarian obviously will also give them a draw, so here they will draw a Dark World Dealings. From here, they're going to activate Monster Reincarnation, discarding the copy of Dark World Dealings to add back this Cerebral. And from here, they will use the Chawa, discarding the Cerebral, and then the Chawa will be able to, or the Cerebral will be able to summon itself. My apologies, and none of these are once per turn, so keep that in mind. Obviously, the the Fabled Raven is a soft once per turn, but for all the small names and things of such sorts, even the Ragin is not a once per turn. So continuing on here, they are going to synchro for a copy of Ancient Fairy Dragon, and the Hyper Librarian will draw a card. They get a copy of Kushano. This one is very well known. It says if this card is in the graveyard, you can discard a Fabled monster to add to the graveyard, except Kushano, and then add this card to your hand. And from here, let's see what they do. They're going to level eat the Ancient Fairy Dragon, synchro summon for a copy of Puralis, the purple Protile. This is just another one of your level 2 tuners. During this time period, Formula Synchron was limited to 1, and this was like kind of one of your other options you had to have. Its effect won't really be relevant here because Air Falco doesn't have any monsters on board. But anyways, from the synchro summon of that, Hyper Librarian drew into, I believe that was another copy of the NAWCQ. And from here, they are using Ancient Fairy Dragon's effect, which this is the copy that's here is going to be the errata version, but back then there was no errata. So here they're just using the additional, I believe it's a normal summon or a special summon. That might be the same. During your main phase, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand. So it is just going to be a special summon here. I think the part that got errated was with the field spells and stuff like that having to be a different name. So here, special summoning this copy of Kushano, and then synchro something for a powered Insectron. Librarian will draw into a desynchro, which is so good here. Being able to do that, summoning out. They summon these back, and then they're just resynchroing into this, drawing a card, which they got the Upstart, using Upstart into Ganashia. So just skipping a little bit of steps there. And after that, continuing on, they are going to synchro with everything into a copy of Quasar, because the levels here, 6, I believe this was at a 4 at the time, so 10 and 12, being able to go into Quasar. And then from here, going for Soul Charge, bringing back the Ragin formula and the Librarian, which they will be able to then, just passing turn there. All right, so even then, very strong, being able to go for Quasar, plus the formula has the quick synchro ability, so they could, in theory, go for another copy of Quasar, depending on how their extra deck looks, and, you know, with the Librarian and stuff being on board, that's very strong too. This is a level 6, so if anything, they could also potentially go into an 8 if need be, like a Stardust or something along those lines, but let's see how they play this out here. Air Falco gets a copy of Ice Hand, and they're going to normal summon Fire Hand, go to battle phase, and attempt to crash in with the Ragin. Here, Formula Synchron will trigger, synchro summoning into, there is a second copy of Quasar. So here, going to main phase 2, Air Falco will just set a couple back row and pass it over to the Bad Apple, who gets another copy of Cerebral. And from here, they are going to use the copy of NAWCQ and discard Cerebral, special summon itself, use the Cerebral to special summon itself from graveyard because it was discarded, and after that, synchro into a copy of the Fabled Unicorn. This is another infamous card. It says, while you and your opponent have the same number of cards in hand, negate all cards and effects activated by your opponent, and if you do, destroy those cards. This is kind of a condition of the card, so this will negate on the resolution of the cards. So basically, any of these, you know, back row, for example, Sanctum, if it tries to trigger, will just be negated, and Air Falco doesn't have something like a Max C or something that can discard itself for cost. So this is going to be maybe potentially just the end of the game, because even if the Bad Apple goes to battle phase, this Fire Hand won't be able to trigger because they both have 2 cards. So let's see what happens. Yeah, just switching everything to attack. And Air Falco's going to scoop it up. You know, those copies of Quasar can just attack twice, plus their Omni negates. Very, very tough position to be in. Opening hands for game number 3 that Air Falco will be starting out. We see Artifact Sanctum, Fire Hand, Debunk, Solemn Warning, and Mermail. And on the other side, we see Ignition, the Fabled Ganashia, Upstart Goblin, Chawa, and Cross, my bad. So I'm wondering if they were on the artifacts. I think they probably would have maybe sided into these just to be able to throw off Air Falco a little bit, but we will have to see. Here, Air Falco will get to draw for turn, getting a copy of DD Crow, so a very important card in this matchup. As mentioned, they will normal summon the Mermail and add a copy of Bottomless. After that, just setting a bunch of back row, and here we do see that Debunk in hand too, so that should be very good. But, you know, we'll see if they get caught off guard by the Bad Apple having the artifact cards in the main now. So here they draw into a copy of Sanctum. So again, just having that is very strong. They're going to go Upstart Goblin, getting a copy of Double Cyclone. After that, they're going to take a second to think. They're going to summon the Fabled Ganashia, and Air Falco is going to use that bottomless right away, probably thinking that a Grimro or something is in hand and not wanting them to be able to discard and add. So dealing with that right away, and here the Bad Apple will be setting 3, and then end of main, they say it's good, passing it over to Air Falco, who gets a copy of Duality, activating Duality, revealing Dionea Sanctum and another Duality, taking that copy of Dionea. Obviously, they already have Mermail into rotation, so that will be good for follow-up. Normal summoning Fire Hand and going to battle phase. Here, it looks like Mermail is going to try to attack in, and I guess they were just thinking in the end of main phase. Here, Ignition is activated, popping the Debunked, very strong hit, honestly, there, and setting a copy of Moral Attack. After that, Mermail is still trying to attack in here, and they will take it. Firehand will attack in as well, and maybe we'll see an end phase Sanctum play with... Nope. Okay, so here we're going to see Double Cyclone play. So Double Cyclone popping the copy of Moral Attack and popping the Sanctum. Ooh, that's a rough one to hit. The Moral Attack will summon, and Air Falco's thinking on this Sanctum here. They are going to Crow the Moral Attack and then no Sanctum pop. Let me just double check that one. It says you can target. Okay, so just making sure, because a lot of the artifact cards are mandatory. I think it's just mostly the monsters other than like Moral Attack summon effect. But anyways, they're choosing not to pop anything there, and the Crow banishes that Moral Attack over to the Bad Apple, who gets another copy of Sanctum here. And so I guess I would assume that given how they played that out, maybe they're not on Beagle Tack, or maybe they were just trying to be extra cautious there. But anyway, setting the copy of Sanctum over to Air Falco, who gets a copy of Call the Haunted. And from here, we will see them just go to battle phase and push in for some damage. The Bad Apple is probably thinking on that Sanctum, which they are going to activate, summoning the Beagle Tack. So they are on Beagle Tack. So okay, just trying to make sure that it would have been clear and trying to make Air Falco use their back row. And here they say... Effect the Beagle Tack, popping their other copy of Sanctum. So just walling up. So yeah, it might have honestly been better there, because they would have been able to go and pop the copy of Moral Attack off of the Beagle Tack being summoned off the first Sanctum. And then from there, obviously, Air Falco would have still probably crowed the Moral Attack. They would have had a defender there, but then the other Sanctum, depending, would have been live. How many artifacts have they gone through so far? Just the one. Yeah, so they would have probably been able to get another Moral Attack or something off of that as another disruption, and then had the Double Cyclone to still pop the, you know, Sanctum that was already technically being activated and clear another back row. So there's almost an argument for that, but it's kind of hard to say what their mindset was. Obviously, again, trying to play through that back row is very important as well. Here it looks like Air Falco went for Lavalval Chain though, and is going to stack a copy of Dionea. After that normal summoning the Dionea they had, going for Mermail, overlaying into a copy of Black Ship, just clearing that copy of Beagle Tack, doing some damage, and then going and setting the Call of the Haunted over to the Bad Apple, who gets a copy of Ignition, and it's not looking great for them here. We'll see what they do, and it looks like they're just going to scoop it up. You know, they really weren't in the best position anyways with Air Falco having this copy of Warning. There was another Dionea on the way, and they just weren't able to clear the Lavalval Chain or the Black Ship here, so it just really wasn't looking good, and even then Air Falco did have a Call of the Haunted. It wouldn't have done too much, but at bare minimum, they could have brought back the Dionea and reset the bottomless, so that was that as well. At least we did get to see this Fabled Quasar deck go off, and this currently at the time of recording is, I think they're in round 1 or 2 of the most recent Moral Attack Monthly when this is coming, or when I'm recording this, so I probably won't have their deck list or anything like that, and I don't know if they'd be willing to share it if they don't top or something. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it. Comment any questions or videos you want to see in the future. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. Share this video with your friends. And don't forget to go down to the video description to find out how you can send in your hat format replays. Whether you won or lost, if you thought the deck you or your opponent was playing was pretty cool, feel free to send those in. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see it. But anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.